Hello and welcome. Settle in, relax, and let your mind drift back through the centuries. Tonight, we explore a time far removed from our own, a period often romanticized, yet starkly different from the world we know. We'll consider why the comforts and conveniences we take for granted would make surviving even a single day in medieval times a profound challenge. And we'll delve deeper into the fabric of that existence, the quiet rhythms and the pervasive difficulties that shaped everyday life. There's no need to focus intently. Just let the sounds and the stories wash over you as you prepare for rest. Imagine waking up, not to the gentle chime of an alarm or the glow of a phone screen, but to the pervasive chill that seeps through rough spun blankets, perhaps even damp straw bedding if you're among the vast majority. There is no central heating, no instant warmth. The air in your small, likely shared sleeping space is cold, possibly thick with the lingering smell of wood smoke from a poorly vented hearth, or the less pleasant aroma of unwashed bodies and nearby animals. If it's winter, ice might frost the inside of rudimentary window coverings, perhaps oiled parchment or wooden shutters, as glass was a luxury reserved for the very wealthy or important institutions like churches. Your first sensation might be discomfort. The mattress, if you have one, is likely a sack filled with straw, feathers if you're fortunate, or perhaps just reeds. It offers little support and is probably home to fleas or other small biting insects, a constant, low-level annoyance you've learned to mostly ignore. You might share this sleeping space, not just with your immediate family, but potentially with servants or apprentices, huddled together for warmth in the colder months. Privacy, as we understand it, is a concept largely alien to the common medieval person. The light is dim. Sunrise dictates the start of the day for most. There are no electric lights to flick on. If you need to see before the sun is fully up, you might rely on the faint glow of embers in the hearth, or perhaps a rushlight, a reed dipped in animal fat that provides a flickering, smoky, and short-lived illumination. Candles made from tallow, animal fat, or beeswax, much more expensive, are used sparingly due to their cost. Darkness governs much of life. Before even thinking about the day's tasks, there's the matter of bodily functions. There is no ensuite bathroom, no flushing toilet. The chamber pot, likely kept under the bed or in a corner, needs emptying. This task might involve carrying the contents outside to a designated midden heap or cesspit, or perhaps in more crowded urban environments, simply tossing it out of a window into the street below, hopefully accompanied by a shouted warning. The smell of human and animal waste is an inescapable part of the medieval sensory landscape, especially in towns and cities. Personal hygiene is rudimentary. Washing might involve a quick splash of cold water on your face and hands from a basin, if you have one. Soap, often made from harsh lye and animal fat, is not for everyday use by most people. It's abrasive and relatively precious. Forget a warm shower or a leisurely bath. While public bathhouses existed in some towns, they were often associated with activities other than just cleaning, and could be expensive or periodically closed due to disease concerns. Bathing at home would mean heating water over the fire, a laborious process, using a wooden tub shared by the household. For most, a full bath is an infrequent event. Cleaning your teeth? Perhaps rubbing them with a rough cloth, maybe with some salt or soot as an abrasive agent, or chewing on a twig with slightly antiseptic properties. Dental care is virtually non-existent by our standards. Tooth decay, gum disease, and tooth loss are common afflictions, often leading to significant pain and difficulty eating. Getting dressed is next. Your wardrobe is extremely limited. Most common people own only 1 or 2 sets of clothing, perhaps 3 if they are slightly better off. These garments are made from coarse, practical materials: itchy wool, sturdy linen derived from flax. Cotton is an expensive import. The clothes are likely layered for warmth, consisting of a simple tunic, perhaps brays, loose under-trousers for men, hose, stockings, and sturdy leather shoes or boots if you can afford them. If not, you might wear wooden clogs or simply go barefoot, especially in warmer weather or indoors. The clothes are probably not particularly clean. Washing clothes is a major chore, involving harsh soaps, beating the garments against rocks or using a washboard, and relying on sun and wind for drying. Clothes are worn until they are literally falling apart, patched and mended repeatedly. The colors are mostly muted earth tones derived from natural plant dyes, though brighter colors signify wealth and status. Putting on these rough, heavy garments is another layer of the morning sensory experience, far from the soft fabrics we're accustomed to. Now, consider breakfast. There are no convenient cereal boxes, no toaster, no coffee maker brewing fragrant beans from across the world. Breakfast, if eaten at all, sometimes people went straight to work and had their first meal later, is simple and probably monotonous. It might consist of coarse bread, rye or barley bread for most, as wheat is more expensive. This bread is dense, heavy, and requires significant chewing. It might be accompanied by pottage, a staple dish for the lower classes. Pottage is essentially a thick stew or porridge made from grains, oats, barley, and whatever vegetables are available, perhaps peas or beans, simmered for hours over the hearth. If you're lucky, there might be a small piece of cheese, an egg, or perhaps some leftover meat scraps from a previous meal. But meat is generally not a daily staple for the poor. To drink? Water is often suspect, especially in populated areas where rivers and wells can be contaminated by waste. The safer and often preferred option is weak ale or beer, sometimes called small beer. This is consumed by everyone, including children, as the brewing process kills many harmful bacteria. It provides calories as well as hydration. Wine is available, especially in grape-growing regions or for the wealthy, but ale and cider are the common drinks. Forget pasteurized milk or bottled fruit juice. This simple meal is consumed quickly, perhaps standing or sitting on a rough bench. There's no lingering over the newspaper or scrolling through social media. The day's work beckons, and daylight is precious. As you step outside your dwelling, whether it's a simple wattle and daub hut with a thatched roof in the countryside or a crowded timber-framed house in a town, the realities of medieval daily life truly hit you. The streets, if you're in a town, are likely narrow, unpaved, and muddy, especially after rain. They are littered with refuse animal dung, discarded food scraps, the contents of chamber pots. Drainage is poor or non-existent. Animals roam freely. Pigs scavenging, dogs, chickens, perhaps geese. The air is thick with smells, decomposing waste, smoke from countless hearths and workshops, like tanneries, blacksmiths, dyers, livestock, and unwashed humanity. The noise level is also significant. Shouting vendors, hammering from workshops, church bells tolling the hours, the cries of animals, the rumble of wooden cartwheels on uneven ground. If you live in the countryside, which is where over 90% of the population resides, your day is dictated by the agricultural cycle. Your work is physically demanding, relentless, and dependent on the weather and the seasons. From sunrise to sunset, you might be plowing fields with heavy wooden plows pulled by oxen, sowing seeds by hand, weeding crops under the hot sun, harvesting grain with a scythe or sickle, back-breaking labor, threshing grain, tending livestock, mending fences, or gathering firewood. There are no tractors, no combine harvesters, no power tools. Everything relies on human and animal muscle power. The tools you use are simple, heavy, and often inefficient by modern standards. Accidents are common: a slip of an axe, a kick from an ox, a fall from a ladder. Infection is a constant risk from even minor injuries. There is no sick pay, no disability benefit. If you cannot work, your family might starve unless supported by the community or the local church. Your life is tied to the land and likely to a feudal lord to whom you owe labor, rent, often paid in produce, and allegiance. Your freedom of movement might be restricted. If you live in a town, your work might be in a craft. You could be an apprentice or journeyman weaver, blacksmith, carpenter, baker, mason, tanner, or potter. The hours are long, typically sunrise to sunset, 6 days a week. Workshops are often small, dark, poorly ventilated, and filled with hazards: the intense heat and sparks of a forge, the dangerous chemicals used in tanning or dyeing, the sharp tools of a carpenter, The dust in a weaver's workshop contributing to lung ailments. Labor protections, safety regulations, minimum wages. These concepts do not exist. You work under the strict rules of a guild, and your progression depends on mastering your craft and the goodwill of your master. For women, work is equally arduous. In the countryside, they work alongside men in the fields, especially during planting and harvest. They also manage the household garden, tend poultry, milk cows or goats, fetch water, often a long walk, gather firewood, spin wool or flax into thread, a near constant task. Weave cloth, bake bread, prepare meals, preserve food for winter, and care for children. In towns, women might work in the family business, run shops, work as servants, spinners, weavers, brewers, or midwives. Their lives are filled with constant labor, often alongside the demands of frequent pregnancies and childbirth, which carry significant risks in this era. Let's pause for the midday meal, often called dinner, and typically the main meal of the day. Again, it's likely simple fare. Perhaps more pottage, bread, cheese, maybe some onions or cabbage from the garden. If it's a feast day or a special occasion, or if you're slightly more affluent, there might be some meat or fish. But for the average person, meat is a luxury. Preservation techniques like salting, smoking, and drying are crucial for making food last, especially through the winter months. Seasonality dictates the diet entirely. Fresh fruit and vegetables are only available for short periods. Winter diets can be particularly monotonous and nutritionally deficient, leading to conditions like scurvy if preserved foods run low. Think about the food itself. Concerns about pesticides or genetic modification are millennia away. The primary concerns are basic availability and avoiding spoilage. Grains might be contaminated with ergot, a fungus that can cause hallucinations and gangrene. Meat might be tainted. Food poisoning is a common and potentially deadly ailment. You eat what you can get, when you can get it. The afternoon brings more work. The rhythm of the day continues, driven by the sun. There are few breaks. Leisure time, as we conceive it. Relaxing with a book, watching television, playing video games, pursuing hobbies for pure enjoyment, is scarce. Entertainment often revolves around church festivals, saints' days, market days, or communal events like weddings. These occasions provide welcome respite from toil, featuring music, pipes, drums, fiddles, dancing, storytelling, simple games, and perhaps extra food and drink, like stronger ale. But daily life is predominantly about work and survival. Social interaction is largely confined to your immediate community, your village, or your neighborhood within a town. News travels slowly, often by word of mouth, carried by traveling merchants, pilgrims, or messengers. Your understanding of the world beyond your local area is likely limited and possibly inaccurate, shaped by rumor, superstition, and the teachings of the church, which plays a central role in medieval life, marking time with its bells and calendar of festivals, providing spiritual guidance, and often acting as a source of authority and social cohesion, as well as education for a select few. As dusk begins to fall, work dependent on natural light ceases. Indoor tasks might continue by the light of the fire or rushlights. The evening meal, or supper, is typically lighter than the midday meal, perhaps bread, cheese, leftover pottage, or soup. The coming of night brings a profound darkness, far deeper than most of us experience today due to modern light pollution. Outside the small pools of light from hearths or sparse lamps, the world is enveloped in blackness. This darkness brings vulnerability. Travel at night is dangerous due to the risk of getting lost, accidents on poor paths, or encounters with bandits or wolves in some areas. Homes are secured as best as possible, simple wooden bars across doors, shutters closed tight. Fear of the dark, of the unknown threats it might conceal, both natural and supernatural, is palpable. Preparing for bed is simple. There's no elaborate skincare routine, no changing into soft pajamas. You might simply remove your outer garments and sleep in your undertunic, huddling under blankets for warmth. The fire in the hearth is carefully banked to preserve embers for the morning, reducing the risk of the house catching fire, a constant danger in structures made primarily of wood and thatch. Sleep itself might be fitful. The straw mattress rustles, insects bite, the cold seeps in. If you share your sleeping space, the snores, coughs, and movements of others are unavoidable. Strange noises from outside, animals, the wind might fuel anxieties in the deep dark. There is no guarantee of uninterrupted rest, and that's just scratching the surface of surviving a single day. We haven't even delved deeply into the overarching historical hardships that defined existence in medieval times. Consider health and medicine. Life expectancy is brutally short, perhaps averaging around 35 years. This figure is skewed by incredibly high infant and child mortality rates. Many children do not survive their first year, succumbing to diseases like diphtheria, measles, smallpox, or simple diarrheal illnesses. If you survive childhood, your chances improve, but life remains precarious. There is no understanding of germ theory. Illness is often attributed to imbalances in the body's humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, divine punishment, witchcraft, or miasma, bad air. Hygiene practices, as we've seen, are minimal, allowing diseases to spread rapidly, especially in crowded, unsanitary conditions. Medical treatments are based on these flawed understandings. Bloodletting is a common practice for almost any ailment, believed to restore humoral balance but often weakening the patient further. Herbal remedies are widely used, some with genuine, though often mild effects, others completely useless or even harmful. Surgery is incredibly dangerous, performed without anesthesia or sterile procedures. Surgeons might set broken bones, often poorly, amputate limbs, with a high risk of death from shock or infection, or perform basic procedures like cataract couching. Pain relief is minimal, relying on alcohol, opium, if available and affordable, or certain herbs, but suffering is largely accepted as a part of life. A simple infection from a cut or wound, something easily treated today with antibiotics, could rapidly become fatal. Epidemics sweep through periodically, devastating populations. The Black Death, bubonic plague, in the mid-14th century is the most infamous example, wiping out an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of Europe's population in just a few years, a catastrophe on an unimaginable scale that profoundly altered the social and economic landscape. But even common ailments like influenza, dysentery, or pneumonia are major killers. Childbirth is perilous for both mother and child. Surviving illness or injury often depends more on luck and constitution than on effective medical intervention. Then there's the constant insecurity related to food. While daily meals might be monotonous, the larger threat is outright famine. A poor harvest due to drought, excessive rain, or blight could lead to widespread food shortages. Grain prices would skyrocket, and the poor, who already lived close to the edge, would face starvation. Malnutrition is chronic for many, weakening their immune systems and making them more susceptible to disease. The difference between the diet of a peasant and that of a noble is stark. While the poor rely on grains and vegetables, the wealthy feast on large quantities of meat, game, finer wheat bread, spices, and wine, though even their diets might lack certain vitamins depending on the season. Personal safety is another major concern. While local communities might be close-knit, violence is a fact of life. Feuds between families or individuals can simmer for generations. Banditry is common on roads outside of towns. Warfare between nobles or kingdoms is frequent, bringing devastation to the lands caught in the conflict. Soldiers might plunder villages, crops are destroyed, and civilians suffer greatly. Law enforcement, as we know it, doesn't exist. Justice is often local and rudimentary. Lords hold courts for their tenants. In towns, civic authorities handle disputes. Methods of determining guilt might include trial by ordeal, like carrying a hot iron or being dunked in water, based on the belief that God would protect the innocent, or trial by combat. Punishments are harsh and often public, intended as a deterrent. Stocks, pillories, flogging, branding, mutilation, hanging. There's little concept of rehabilitation. If you are accused of a crime, especially if you are poor or lack influential connections, your chances of a fair hearing are slim. Your personal security depends heavily on your social standing, your relationships within the community, and sheer luck. Consider the lack of knowledge and information. Literacy is rare, confined mostly to the clergy, nobility, and some merchants. Most people receive information orally through sermons, stories, songs, and conversation. Superstition is rife, and understanding of the natural world is limited and often intertwined with folklore and religious dogma. News travels at the speed of a horse or a ship. There is no mass media, no easy way to verify information. Your worldview is shaped almost entirely by your immediate environment and the authorities within it, primarily the church and your feudal lord or local officials. Think about the sheer absence of comforts and conveniences that permeate our lives. No central heating or air conditioning means enduring sweltering summers and freezing winters with only basic mitigation like fires or seeking shade. No plumbing means carrying water and dealing with waste manually. No readily available light after dark restricts activity and fosters insecurity. Travel is slow, arduous, and often dangerous, conducted on foot, horseback, or in bumpy carts over poor roads. A journey that takes us hours by car could take days or weeks. Communication is slow and uncertain. Sending a message relies on finding someone traveling in the right direction or paying for a messenger. There's no instant connection to loved ones far away. Entertainment options are limited and communal, unlike our vast array of individualized digital entertainment. The sensory world itself is different, dominated by natural sounds and smells, both pleasant and deeply unpleasant, largely unfiltered. The textures of everyday objects are rougher wood, stone, coarse fabrics. Living through a medieval winter required significant preparation, stockpiling firewood, preserving enough food, salted meat, dried beans, stored root vegetables, ensuring livestock could be sheltered and fed. A long, harsh winter could be deadly, depleting resources and weakening people before the spring brought renewal. Even the concept of time is different. While church bells might mark hours for prayer, the day is primarily measured by the sun's position and the rhythm of tasks. Minutes and seconds are not practical concerns for most people. Life moves at a slower, more natural pace, yet is filled with relentless toil. The medieval daily life was one of resilience, adaptation, and community dependence. People found joy in simple pleasures, celebrated religious festivals with gusto, and maintained strong social bonds. They possessed skills and knowledge essential for their survival that we have largely lost: understanding the land, proficiency with hand tools, techniques for food preservation, making clothes and shelter from raw materials. They faced historical hardships with a stoicism born of necessity. But stripped of our modern knowledge, sanitation, medicine, technology, and safety nets, stepping into that world would be a profound shock. The lack of basic hygiene, the omnipresent threat of disease and infection, the physical demands of work, the insecurity of food and safety, the limited information, the sheer lack of comfort. These factors combined would make survival, let alone thriving, an immense challenge for anyone accustomed to the 21st century. The first 24 hours would be an overwhelming sensory and physical ordeal, highlighting the vast gulf between our existence and theirs. It's a world that demands a different kind of strength, a different understanding of life and its uncertainties. As we reflect on these differences, perhaps it fosters a quiet appreciation for the comforts we often overlook. The clean water from the tap, the light at the flick of a switch, the warmth of our homes, the relative safety of our streets, the medical care that saves lives, the abundance of food, the ease of communication and travel. The medieval world, fascinating as it is to study, was a harsh environment, one that demanded constant vigilance and labor simply to endure. And now, as our journey through the past gently comes to a close, let these thoughts fade into the background. Let the quiet rhythm of history lull you toward sleep. There is nothing more to focus on, nothing more to analyze. Simply allow your mind to be still, your body to relax. May the contrast with those historical hardships bring a sense of peace and gratitude for the quiet and comfort of your own bed, your own time. Tonight, our journey takes us further back, to the heart of a vast and powerful empire, ancient Rome. We often see images of majestic columns, disciplined legions, and grand spectacles. But let's peel back that veneer and consider the realities of daily existence, exploring why adapting to even one day in the bustling, complex world of Rome would be an immense undertaking for us, and delve into the deeper currents of life in that celebrated yet challenging era. Let the details wash over you. No need to hold on to them. Just relax and listen as you drift. Imagine your awakening. Not in a quiet bedroom, but perhaps in a cramped room within a towering, rickety insula, one of the densely packed apartment blocks housing the majority of Rome's urban population. The first light struggles to penetrate the narrow alleys, maybe filtering through a small, unglazed window, or simply an opening covered by a wooden shutter or animal skin. The air is likely cool in the morning, regardless of the season, carrying the sounds of the city already stirring. The distant clatter of wagons, though heavy carts were often banned during daylight hours in the city center, shouts from vendors setting up stalls, neighbors moving about in adjacent rooms separated by thin walls. There is no thermostat, no instant climate control. In summer, the heat builds relentlessly within these brick and timber structures, often poorly constructed and prone to collapse or fire. In winter, the cold seeps in, countered only by small, smoky braziers burning charcoal, which pose their own risks of fire and carbon monoxide poisoning. Forget the comfort of a thick mattress. Your bed might be a simple pallet on the floor, perhaps a slightly raised wooden frame with ropes supporting a thin mattress stuffed with straw or rags. Privacy is minimal. Families, lodgers, and sometimes even slaves might share these confined spaces. Your first conscious thoughts might be driven by basic needs. Where is the toilet? There's no private bathroom. You might use a chamber pot, which needs emptying later. Or more likely, you'd make your way down multiple flights of precarious stairs to the communal latrine on the ground floor, or, more commonly, a public latrine facility nearby. These public latrines were surprisingly sophisticated for their time, often featuring rows of stone or marble seats, with channels of running water beneath to carry waste away. However, they were decidedly public. You'd sit alongside dozens of strangers, conducting your business with little to no privacy, perhaps using a shared sponge on a stick, rinsed in the running water channel, for cleaning, a concept far removed from our notions of hygiene. The smell, despite the running water, would likely be potent. Washing yourself involves heading to a public fountain to fetch water in a jug or basin. You might splash your face and hands with cold water. Soap, while known, wasn't used for personal hygiene in the way we use it. Romans, particularly those who could afford it or had time, preferred the ritual of the public baths, thermae. This happened later in the day, not typically first thing in the morning. So your morning ablutions are minimal. Cleaning your teeth might involve rubbing them with a cloth or a finger, perhaps using powdered charcoal or pumice as an abrasive. Dental health is poor. Decay, gum disease, and tooth loss are common, accepted parts of life. Getting dressed is straightforward because your options are limited. The basic garment for almost everyone, men, women, children, slaves, is the tunic, a simple T-shaped garment, usually made of wool, often undyed or in simple earth tones, or perhaps linen for the better off or in warmer weather. Men might wear it knee-length, women longer. Over this, a male citizen might wear the toga if the occasion demanded it, a cumbersome, large semicircle of wool requiring specific draping, a symbol of citizenship but impractical for daily labor. Footwear consists of simple leather sandals or boots. Clothes are functional, durable, and worn repeatedly between infrequent, laborious washings. Breakfast, or ientaculum, is typically a light affair, often eaten quickly or on the go. It might be a piece of coarse bread, perhaps dipped in wine or water, maybe some cheese, olives, or fruit if available. Forget coffee, tea, sugary cereals, or bacon and eggs. Water is available from public fountains fed by Rome's impressive aqueducts. but its quality could still be variable within the city's distribution network. Wine, often diluted with water, is a common drink for hydration and calories, consumed by most social classes. Now imagine stepping out of your insula into the Roman street. The experience is an assault on the senses. The streets are narrow, often paved with large, uneven stones, crowded with people from all walks of life. Citizens in tunics, perhaps a few in togas, slaves rushing on errands, foreign merchants, soldiers, women heading to market, children darting underfoot. The noise is immense. Vendors shouting their wares from open-fronted shops and stalls, tabernae, the hammering of craftsmen, the chatter of countless conversations in Latin and other languages from across the empire, the bleating of animals being led to market or sacrifice. The smells are overpowering and mixed. Food cooking at street stalls, sausages, bread, fried fish, incense burning at small shrines, perfumes worn by the wealthy, mingling with the less pleasant odors of garbage thrown into the street, despite regulations against it. Animal dung, industrial processes like tanning or dyeing from nearby workshops, and the pervasive smell from overflowing cesspits or poorly maintained drains. Refuse collection is rudimentary. While Rome had sewers, like the Cloaca Maxima, they didn't connect directly to most residences. Waste often ended up in the streets or designated pits. You have to watch where you step, not just to avoid filth, but also potential hazards like falling debris from the poorly maintained insulae above. Your day's activity depends entirely on your status within ancient Roman society. If you are among the urban poor, you might head to the home of a wealthy patron hoping to receive the sportula, a small handout of food or money in exchange for your attendance and support. Or you might seek casual labor at the docks, construction sites, or workshops. Unemployment and underemployment are constant issues for the lower classes. If you are an artisan, a potter, weaver, baker, smith, you head to your workshop, often located in the same building where you live. The workday is long, dictated by daylight hours. Conditions are often cramped, poorly lit, and filled with occupational hazards, intense heat, dangerous tools, dust, fumes. There are no safety regulations, no workers' rights as we understand them. Guilds, collegia, exist, but they focus more on social and religious functions than on labor protection. If you are a slave, your day is entirely dictated by your owner's commands. You might perform domestic chores in a wealthy household, cooking, cleaning, tutoring children, hard labor in a workshop, on a farm, or in a mine, often a death sentence, or serve customers in a shop. Your life lacks autonomy, and you are subject to the whims and potentially the cruelty of your master. Escape is difficult and severely punished. While some slaves could eventually earn or buy their freedom, manumission, the vast majority live and die in bondage. Slavery is a fundamental pervasive institution underpinning the Roman economy and social structure. Women's lives vary greatly by class. Wealthy women oversee large households, manage slaves, engage in social events, and might wield considerable informal influence, though they are excluded from formal politics. Poorer women work alongside their families in shops or workshops, sell goods in the market, work as weavers, laundresses, or midwives, manage their modest homes, and raise children. Their lives, like men's, involve constant labor. The midday meal, prandium, is typically light and quick, similar to breakfast. Perhaps bread, cheese, cold leftovers, fruit, or vegetables. It might be eaten at a thermopolium, a street-side stall selling hot food and drinks, akin to ancient fast food. The afternoon offers a uniquely Roman experience for many. The public baths, thermae. These are not just places for washing, but major social centers. Large imperial baths are vast complexes, often free or very cheap to enter, funded by the state or wealthy individuals. The routine might involve exercise in the palestra, exercise yard, followed by scraping off dirt and oil with a curved metal tool called a strigil, no soap used here, and then progressing through pools of varying temperatures. The tepidarium, warm room, caldarium, hot room, often with a pool, and frigidarium, cold plunge pool. People meet friends, conduct business, Gossip, relax. While a remarkable feat of engineering and a central part of Roman daily life, the shared water and lack of understanding about germs mean these baths could also be breeding grounds for skin infections and other diseases. For entertainment, Rome offers thrilling, often brutal spectacles, usually sponsored by emperors or wealthy politicians to gain popularity. Chariot races in the vast Circus Maximus draw enormous crowds, filled with partisan fervor for different racing teams. Gladiatorial contests in arenas like the Colosseum pit trained fighters, often slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals, against each other or against wild animals in fights to the death. These bloody events are hugely popular, a stark contrast to modern sensibilities about violence as entertainment. As evening approaches, those who work head home. The main meal of the day for many Romans is the cena, eaten in the late afternoon or early evening. For the poor, this might still be simple, perhaps pulse, a basic grain porridge, the Roman equivalent of medieval pottage, bread, vegetables. If they are lucky, maybe some sausage or fish. For the wealthy, the cena can be an elaborate, multi-course banquet lasting for hours, featuring exotic dishes, copious amounts of wine, entertainment, musicians, dancers, poets, and lengthy conversations, often conducted while reclining on couches. The disparity between rich and poor is immense. Nightfall in Rome brings a dramatic change. With no widespread street lighting, the city plunges into a profound darkness, broken only by flickering oil lamps in windows, or carried by those brave or foolish enough to venture out. The streets become dangerous. Crime, muggings, burglary, assault thrives under the cover of darkness. The vigils, the city's combination police force and fire brigade, patrol the streets, but they are often ineffective against determined criminals or major fires, which can spread rapidly through the tightly packed insulae. Most citizens lock themselves indoors, securing doors with simple bars or bolts, hoping to remain undisturbed until morning. Preparing for bed is simple. Remove outer garments, lie down on your basic pallet, perhaps pull up a rough wool blanket. Sleep might be interrupted by the noise from neighbors, the sounds of the city that never completely sleeps, the discomfort of your bed, or anxieties about the challenges of the coming day. There is no guarantee of peaceful rest. Surviving this single day, with its sensory overload, lack of sanitation, basic diet, and potential dangers, would be taxing. But the true challenge lies in the pervasive historical hardships woven into the fabric of Roman life. Consider health and medicine again. Despite impressive engineering like aqueducts and sewers, understanding of disease transmission is non-existent. Water sources can be contaminated. Lead pipes were also used extensively, potentially contributing to chronic health issues. Crowded urban conditions are ideal for epidemics. The Antonine Plague, likely smallpox or measles, in the 2nd century CE and later plagues, devastated the empire's population. Average life expectancy remained low, around 25, 30 years, heavily influenced by staggering infant and child mortality. Roman medicine, influenced by Greek traditions, like the physician Galen, relied on the theory of humors. Treatments included bleeding, purging, and herbal remedies, many of dubious value. Surgery was surprisingly advanced in some areas, like cataract removal or battlefield surgery for legions, but performed without anesthesia or sterile techniques, making infection a major killer. Childbirth remained incredibly dangerous for both mother and infant. Enduring common illnesses, infections, or injuries required a strong constitution and considerable luck. Food security, especially for the massive population of Rome, was a constant concern. The city depended heavily on the annona, the state-supervised supply of grain, primarily shipped from Egypt and North Africa. Disruptions to this supply line due to bad weather, war, or political instability could lead to shortages and riots. While the state provided subsidized or free grain to citizens, the diet for the poor remained monotonous and often nutritionally deficient. Malnutrition was common. Personal safety was precarious. Beyond street crime, the state itself could be brutal. Punishments for crimes were harsh and public flogging, forced labor in mines, crucifixion, reserved for non-citizens and slaves, or being thrown to wild beasts in the arena. Political instability, particularly during periods of civil war or tyrannical emperors, could lead to purges, confiscations, and widespread fear, even among the elite. For slaves, violence or the threat of it was a constant reality of their existence. The social structure was rigidly hierarchical. Vast gulfs separated the wealthy senatorial and equestrian classes from the masses of plebeians, and further down, the enormous population of slaves who had virtually no rights. While Roman law was sophisticated in many respects, particularly regarding property and contracts, access to justice often depended heavily on one's social status and connections. Social mobility was possible, especially through military service or acquiring wealth, but limited for most. Life was lived much more publicly than today. Privacy was a luxury few could afford. Homes were often small and crowded, and much of life work, socializing, bathing, entertainment, even using the latrine, took place in communal or public spaces. This fostered a strong sense of community for some, but also meant constant noise, scrutiny, and potential conflict. The sheer scale and complexity of Roman administration, engineering, and military organization were remarkable achievements. Yet, for the average person living within that system, daily life was often a struggle for survival against poverty, disease, insecurity, and the demands of hard labor. The grandeur of the Colosseum, or the Forum Romanum, existed alongside squalid tenements, endemic disease, and pervasive social inequality. Stripped of our modern amenities, readily available clean water, sanitation systems, electricity, instant communication, advanced medicine, regulated food supplies, social safety nets, and expectations of personal space and safety. Navigating a single day in ancient Rome would be bewildering and exhausting. The constant noise, smells, crowds, the lack of basic hygiene as we know it, the physical discomfort, the threat of disease, and the underlying precariousness of life would be an immense shock to the system. As we contemplate this bustling, vibrant, yet harsh world, let the details soften and blur. Allow the sounds and sensations of ancient Rome to fade, replaced by the quiet comfort of your present surroundings. Let the awareness of those past struggles deepen your appreciation for the ease and safety you now experience. There is nothing more to analyze, nothing to figure out, just the gentle pull towards rest, towards peaceful sleep, leaving the distant echoes of history behind.